but of course we do start with tennis, and Novak Djokovic is back training for the Australian Open after winning his visa battle in court. The world number one posted on social media overnight, "I'm pleased and grateful that the judge overturned my visa cancellation. Despite all that has happened, I want to stay and try to compete. I remain focused on that. I flew here to play at one of the most important events we have in front of the amazing fans. For now, I cannot say more, but thank you and all for standing with me through this time and encouraging me to stay strong." Meanwhile, there were clashes overnight between police and Djokovic's fans in Melbourne, officers using pepper spray to disperse crowds. The world number one's family spoke of their relief over the decision and say they are grateful for his release.
I just hope that it will stay like this, that he will be free and he will play.
I gotta say how much I admire Judge Kelly and the way he led with the whole court process. You know, I want to thank him in front of the family for leading the process in such a way and for, you know, showing the world the whole truth.
The press conference ended abruptly after the family was asked about why Novak attended public events the day after testing positive for COVID. Well, let's go to Melbourne now, where we find our reporter Joel Philp. Joel, Djokovic has been able to train today.
Yeah, that's right, Eloise, who is actually on court at Rod Laver Arena for his first daytime training session since this whole saga began. So a great opportunity for him there, but this situation still remains shrouded in secrecy to some extent. That we do know that from about 3 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. he had that opportunity to train. There was some speculation, though, from people inside that when he attended a gym in the players' area, he was met with silence and stares. So quite a bit of tension there in what would still traditionally be safe spaces for the player. There was a heavy police presence here today at the entrance to the car park where Djokovic was intended to head into this facility at Melbourne Park. So obviously concerns that there could be more ugly scenes like we saw last night, but it continues to roll on with this situation as he begins to prepare for what he hopes to be, of course, his record 21st Grand Slam. It could indeed be the biggest tournament of his career so far.
Yeah, it certainly could be. Well, Joel, there is a new twist, though, off the court in this visa saga with reports the world number one lied on his travel form. What's the latest there?
Yeah, that's right, Eloise. Look, any traveller who's heading into Australia needs to declare whether they have or will go to any other country in the 14 days prior to them heading into Australia. So in this case, Novak Djokovic, who entered from Spain flying to Australia, would have had to be there from December 22nd onwards. Now, he is declared in his travel forms according to the Feds. And I'm just going to read you a little portion now of that travel form. It says, "Note, giving false or misleading information is a serious offence. You may also be liable to a civil penalty for giving false or misleading information." So that's where it stands on that front. In the meantime, the Immigration Minister, Alex, beg your pardon, I've forgotten his last name. The Immigration Minister is busy considering whether he will follow through with any possible cancel of his visa, but we've heard that he's not expected to do that today.
Well, we've seen how Serbia and the world have reacted to this, but what have tennis fans in Australia made of it all, Joel?
Yeah, it's interesting, Eloise. Look, I went today to Federation Square to talk to the broader public about how they felt about this situation, and there was not much support for Novak Djokovic. I couldn't find anyone who was glad about this. Whereas here at Melbourne Park, the tennis fans who have been watching the qualifying matches so far, they are much more conflicted. They say, on the one hand, it's so important to have big names like this come to Australia to compete in the Australian Open that it means more exciting matches and bigger crowds. But on the other hand, with the incredibly difficult year that Australia's had in the past 2 years, it's really an indication of how difficult it'll be in that moment if he does hold up the cup as an unvaccinated person in a stadium full of vaccinated people.
Yeah, so
in the end, they've sort of bungled the whole thing because they did give him a visa to come here and they've sort of backflipped, the Australian government has, on that. So I think it could just very well be a distraction from their mishandling of the pandemic so far with the rapid tests and the COVID tests and the PCR tests, everything that's going on at the moment, because they did give him a visa to come. But I think in the end, the way they've treated him, I think it's not ideal.
Well, I mean, he's the best tennis player in the world, and I think we need the best tennis players in the world to try and keep the Oz Open in Melbourne as well. So that's a good side, except for the fact it seems that we've made an exemption for someone that maybe doesn't need it or deserve it.
It's a double standard. It's certainly a double standard. We've been told to follow these rules, and then he's got exemption because of whatever reason, which seems a bit odd.
What do you think it's going to be like? What kind of reception do you think he's going to get from the crowd?
My immediate reaction was people will probably boo, and I totally understand that because we've done it tough, and he can walk in because he's the world number one and whatever other reasons, and he's got the money, and they're different rules for different people.
Eloise, and with that essentially confirmation that the Immigration Minister is not going to follow through with this case today, it does drag the entire drama into another day. Well, of course, Novak Djokovic will be attempting to be focused on his game ahead of these incredibly important matches of tennis that we're going to see here while the rest of the world watches, and it'll be a very dramatic turn of events to see what happens next.
Certainly is a case of watch this space. Joel Felt there in Melbourne. Thanks so much for your time.